I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's.
Did the CIA write Wind of Change by the Scorpions?
As humans busied themselves about the various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied.
Dr. Loeb, what percentage chance do you give it that you have indeed uncovered extraterrestrial or non-human technology?
With infinite complacence, people went about their affairs, yet across an immense ethereal gulf, intellects vast and unsympathetic threw their plans against us.
All of a sudden, a stick out of nowhere landed right in front of us, and there was no tree, nothing overhead. Something threw it at us.
Yeah.
All Things Unexplained.
So some of that, I think, sir, we'll save for closed session.
Hello, Unexplained Ones. I'm Dr. Mounce, and welcome back to All Things Unexplained. We're diving into even more Roswell developments, actually two of them, both happening on May 1st, 2025. So just a few days ago, one came straight from a congressional briefing, and the other from the Joe Rogan Experience. We're going to break it all down. But first, if you haven't subscribed already to our YouTube channel, be sure to do so. It really helps out the channel. And be sure to visit our YouTube store where you can pick up mugs, hats, hoodies, t-shirts, lots of great All Things Unexplained merch. And now, let's dive into this recent Roswell news. So just a few weeks ago, the National Archives quietly put out previously unreleased UFO-related audio recordings from the 1990s. In one clip of an interview whose transcript went into the infamous 1995 Roswell report, we hear Lieutenant Colonel Sheridan Cavett, who accompanied Major Jess Marcel to the debris field in Roswell in 1947, mock legendary UFO researcher Stanton Friedman. This interview was conducted by Colonel Richard L. Weaver for the previously mentioned Roswell report that came out in 1995. Let's listen to the clip.
He's a nice man. He has a nice family. What the date on that is? A letter from Doyle. It says, when you call a press conference, tell the world, let me know I want to be there. So, I've just got reams of this stuff in books.
Do you mind if I look through that real quick?
Oh, heavens no.
See, I've
from that nut up in Freeburg,
Stanton T. Friedman
or whatever.
Yeah, he doesn't like me a lot.
He
writes me
called me
nasty
a couple
letters.
of times. One time I could hear him a little bit, but it wasn't good enough for me to try to strain my brain. So he apologized in a letter he wrote me back. Said, "Sorry, we had a bad telephone connection on your end."
So again, that clip came from a conversation with Colonel Richard L. Weaver, the official behind the 1995 Air Force's Roswell report. Also present were Lieutenant Colonel Sheridan Cavett, who accompanied Major Jesse Marcel to the debris field in Roswell in 1947. The fact is, Cavett always downplayed what they found at Roswell, but the speculation has always been, was Cavett under orders to stick to that particular cover story? And then there's a second, more disturbing clip. This one reveals what appears to be intentional evasion of FOIA, Freedom of Information Act laws, and document hiding. In this previously unheard audio clip, we've got someone from the Air Force interviewing Charles B. Moore, and his wife was also present, and she did chime in during the interview. This interview happened also in 1994. A fact about Moore: Moore was a Project Mogul scientist who said the Roswell debris was a Mogul balloon. But the speculation is the Air Force wanted to pin Roswell on Mogul so bad that Moore was the perfect patsy to make this happen. Of course, we first released both these audio clips on Twitter. And on Twitter, you can find us at AT Unexplained. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. Now, in this newly released audio-only recording from June 8, 1994, the U.S. Air Force is interviewing Professor Charles B. Moore, physicist and meteorologist who played a key role in Project Mogul, at his dining table at his home. In the clip, Moore references Robert Todd, a persistent Roswell researcher known for his sharp criticism of the UFO community. Todd was seeking to communicate privately with Air Force officials in a deliberate attempt to circumvent FOIA protocols, an effort to stop documents from being released to, quote, UFO buffs, unquote. Moore also revealed that Colonel Duffy kept significant materials stored in his basement, documents that presumably have never been seen by the public. Now, the fact is, Colonel Duffy was most known for being involved in Project Mogul, so these documents probably primarily relate to Project Mogul, but why was he storing them in his basement? We may never know. Let's check out the clip.
Did he prefer you not give us copies of all this information?
Right, he's dug up the things with Colonel Duffy, and he wants to be sure that they don't get released to the other UFO buffs or the UFO buffs. I think he's not one under Freedom of Information. So I think he's willing to have it transferred to you as a private communication.
I see.
I think Colonel Weaver promised that he could arrange it so that it would not come under Freedom of Information disclosure, which may be odd for Todd to be asking, but I thought you'd find that of some interest.
Well, the end report that we're going to write is going to be based on official records and essentially transcripts such as this. So there'll be a lot of things like Cabot's tape, the transcript will not be part of that. This statement,
but the summary will.
The statement will be.
Can I make a suggestion? If you remember, there was a note in there from Dave Atlas to Colonel Duffy, a copy of a letter, I think, there. And Dave mentioned somewhere or another that Colonel Duffy took him down in his basement, and he had large amount. Colonel Duffy had trunkfuls of documents that were unclassified. I wonder if it would be possible for you to contact Mrs. Duffy, who
I was wondering about what she might have.
Well, I think she may have a great deal.
As you heard, this is hard evidence of a deeper, more controlled information network surrounding the Roswell incident. I have to give a shout out to my friend and Roswell researcher Paul Tiberius. Make sure to check him out at roswellufotour.com. We owe a big shout out to our friend Patrick at the Vetted podcast. Our Roswell tweet on the FOIA cover-up and the hidden documents in the basement inspired an episode of Vetted, and Patrick gave us a great shout out on the show. Let's check it out right here.
We're staying on Roswell because this next part that I have for you that was uncovered in this document drop is honestly pretty damn interesting, if I'm being honest. So I want to give a special shout out to All Things Unexplained podcast with Dr. Tim. He put this out. He gets all the credit. I've been on their show before. Amazing show. They do a great job. And he put out this tweet. Now, who is this Colonel Duffy hiding documents? Well, the image that I was going to reveal is Colonel Duffy. This is who's been hiding documents about Roswell in his basement. There you go. How do you feel about that?
Now you can watch that entire episode of Vetted. The link is in the comments to this show. Much love to Patrick and the team at Vetted. Let's all keep pushing for the truth. Although it was mind-blowing to find those Roswell revelations in the National Archives release, we never expected there to be even more breaking Roswell news here recently, but yet that is exactly what happened. On May 1st, 2025, the UAPDF, that's the UAP Disclosure Fund, sponsored a congressional briefing on UAPs. Now, we live streamed that congressional briefing on YouTube and on our Twitter. We also turned it into an audio podcast with easy to navigate chapters. Check out the show description to get to all those links. So who is the UAPDF? Well, the fact is the UAP Disclosure Fund is an independent nonprofit advocating for full government transparency on UAPs. Learn more at UAPDisclosureFund.org. But the speculation is this group may be laying the foundation for a more official, public-facing disclosure campaign. The congressional hearing was moderated by none other than Lou Elizondo, former head of ATIP. He ran the Pentagon's UFO program, but speculation is that some believe Lou still operates under certain NDAs or classified restraints, and now there's a little bit of controversy over a UFO photograph, or I should say a supposed UFO photograph that he unexpectedly unveiled during part 2 of the UAP briefing. We won't get into that this episode, but what we do want to get into is the testimony of one of the witnesses. So the attending representatives were Representative Anna Paulina Luna from Florida, Representative Tim Burchett from Tennessee, and Representative Eric Burleson from Missouri. What we want to get into is the testimony of one of the speakers, though. The speakers were Dr. Avi Loeb, who has appeared many times on All Things Unexplained. Again, head to the show description for links to all Avi Loeb's appearances on All Things Unexplained. Avi Loeb is a Harvard astrophysicist. He is with the Galileo Project. He first suspected that Oumuamua was an extraterrestrial object, and he went in search of interstellar fragments off the coast of Papua New Guinea. Also at the briefing was Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet, former Navy oceanographer, who's now focused on not only UAPs, but specifically USOs, unidentified submerged objects. And with the explosive testimony regarding Roswell was Dr. Eric Davis, theoretical physicist known for his work on wormholes, advanced propulsion, and UAP programs. Some facts about Eric Davis: he was a consultant for the Pentagon and wrote papers on exotic tech for the Defense Intelligence Agency, but speculation is that Davis has long been whispered about as someone with direct knowledge of UFO crash retrievals. And now, let's play the shocking clip from the UAP Congressional briefing where Eric Davis told us all about species of aliens.
Like, what was their size and how many are usually on a craft? They're typically the multiple species. People really like the Greys, the Nordics. People have talked about reptilians and insectoids. It's not that they're reptilian or insectoid, it's that they resemble to the Pacific of reptile or insect type humanoid, because they have this a head and 4 limbs and torso. So large, small, human size, human scale. And how many are crew? Right. Well, the Greys I'm familiar with from investigating the crash at Corona, which is misnamed the crash at Roswell. It's not the crash at Roswell, it's the crash at Rogan, Mexico. Those were Greys and 2 foot tall. The Nordics are typically human size, probably I've heard 5-6 feet tall. And same with the people who mislabel reptilian and insectoid, they're roughly that height too. I haven't heard anything about anything 7 or 8 feet.
So there you have it, folks. Eric Davis to Congress. We've got Nordics, we've got reptilians, we've got insectoids, and based on his Roswell investigation, an investigation which, so far as we can determine, was completely unknown about. There's no record of any investigation of Roswell by Eric Davis. Based on his Roswell investigation, it was 4 foot tall gray aliens that crashed at Roswell in 1947. This is one of the most direct, on-record statements about non-human crash victims in a formal government setting. Now, speculation is, could this have been a soft form of disclosure, slipping out during an unclassified section? Has Eric Davis ever spoken on another podcast or somewhere else about his own Roswell investigations? If you know of anything, please let us know. Now, incredibly, either by coincidence or synchronicity or some type of planning, later that day, May 1st, on a pre-recorded interview on the Joe Rogan Experience, Joe Rogan has a chance to talk to Hal Puthoff. Ironically, Hal Puthoff recently came up on All Things Unexplained, or basically came up as we were talking to legendary remote viewer Lynn Buchanan.
Russian Colonel Penkovsky tried to defect, and he brought with him papers showing that the Russians had developed that and that they were getting our secrets using psychic spies. And everybody had a good laugh about that, but the intelligence services, they don't laugh. They don't laugh very much. They looked at it and they looked at the results and they said, this seems to be working. Well, we have to have it too. So they went out to SRI, Stanford Research Institute, found two laser physicists who had written a paper about how the intentions and the attention of a laser physicist actually affects the beam of light. And so that was the closest thing. They hooked up with Ingo Swann and actually developed this process for using your intuition to spy.
Lynn Buchanan mentioned how our intelligence community began to get involved with remote viewing, and they sought out a physicist who had done work on lasers. Well, that physicist was none other than Hal Puthoff. And that afternoon, shortly after the congressional briefing sponsored by the UAPDF, Hal Puthoff dropped an even deeper Roswell revelation regarding Eric Davis. Let's check it out.
Roswell crash is the big one, right? That's the one that everybody knows about, and it was in 1947 Roswell, New Mexico. What do you think that was?
I think it was a true non-human intelligence craft that crashed. We've talked to one of my colleagues, Eric Davis, is one of my senior scientific advisors. He interviewed General Exon, who had been head of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and so on, and also Dubose. So he's interviewed a couple of people that were involved back in those days, and they say it was the real deal, that this was a real unidentifiable crash, and these materials were really from out someplace.
So Hal Puthoff tells Joe Rogan that Eric Davis did indeed conduct his own Roswell investigation. Not only that, but he tells us Eric Davis interviewed Exon and Dubose. Let's unpack that a little. General Arthur Exon was a former commander of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which many believe housed the Roswell wreckage, whatever that happened to be. General Thomas Dubose was in the infamous photo next to the weather balloon debris that ran in the newspaper, and later recanted the balloon story, not just in 1978, but also in 1991.
There's no doubt in your mind, I gather, that the balloon story was a cover story.
Absolutely none. We knew that it was a cover story, and whose idea it was, I haven't the vaguest idea, but we used that in order to assuage the curiosity of the press, because this had gotten out in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, Dallas News, and the UPI. And
the press release from Roswell, Blanchard's press release.
Yeah, there are all these pictures from Roswell. You see, all this created a lot of hubbub.
It was a cover story. The balloon part of it is the story that's to be given to the press, and that is it, and anything else, forget it. My mother told me, you are not to discuss this, and this is a point of which this is more than top secret, as he said. It's beyond that. It's within my priority as deputy to George Kenney, and he in turn responsible to the president. This is the highest priority you can exist, and you will say nothing, and that's the end of it.
Hell, I was in one of the 3 people that had the top secret eclipse for the atomic bomb in the headquarters Air Force.
That wasn't something you would have talked about at home?
Never. I never talk about it to Rose. I wouldn't talk about it to you or anybody else.
According to Hal Puthoff, Davis interviewed both men directly. At least that's what it sounded like to us. Now we wonder, was Eric Davis just recalling stories that he had heard about or that someone had told him? Or did Eric Davis really directly interview Dubose and Exon? If so, this is quite the revelation, as such interviews were previously unknown about. So my friend Paul, again with the Roswell UFO tour, and we wondered, was it even possible for Davis to have interviewed these men? Let's look at the timeline. Thomas Dubose died on February 24th, 1992. Arthur Exon died July 22nd, 2005. So it seems like Davis could have possibly interviewed both men before their death. Well, we wondered, how old is Eric Davis? And I did something I do a lot. I asked AI a simple question for my research for this show. How old is Eric Davis? The one involved with UFOs, of course. And AI pretty much has always immediately told me the age and birth date of whoever I asked them about. Well, something quite strange and curious happened. When I asked AI how old is Eric Davis, it said unknown. Davis's birth year is not publicly known, not even through academic or government records. Very mysterious, very bizarre. So, could Davis have interviewed them both before they passed? Possibly, but until Davis or someone else confirms it, we're just left on our own to put the pieces together. So here we are, right on the heels of All Things Unexplained, discovering this Roswell audio hidden in the National Archives. And then on May 1st, Eric Davis tells Congress that gray aliens crashed at Roswell. And then later that day, Hal Puthoff tells Joe Rogan that Davis got that story straight from 2 high-ranking generals through his own Roswell investigation. The fact is, Roswell just got a little more real. It seems like disclosure isn't coming all at once, though. It's unfolding slowly, piece by piece. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more breakdowns like this, and let us know your thoughts. Was this soft disclosure or something bigger? What's really going on here? What really happened in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947? This is Dr. Mounce with All Things Unexplained. Until next time, keep looking up.
All Things Unexplained.
What's your hot take on Travis Taylor?
I've got an exclusive for you guys if you want it about the Alaska.
We do.
Okay.
Dr. Taylor was revealed to be the chief scientist of the UAP task force with the Pentagon.
So some of that, I think, sir, will save for closed session.